The second season of Peaky Blinders begins with a dramatic separation between Grace and Tommy Shelby. As Grace seeks out Tommy, she is confronted by the menacing Inspector Campbell, who aims a gun at her. But, in a surprising turn of events, Grace manages to protect herself by pulling out a hidden gun from her bag. The Peaky Blinders, known for their notorious reputation, soon face new enemies and rivals. On the day of Freddie Thorne's funeral, one of their bars is attacked by an unknown perpetrator, causing significant damage and losses. Ada Shelby, fearing for her safety and her child, decides to leave the Shelby family. The danger and violence surrounding the Peaky Blinders are too great, especially now that she has lost her protector Freddie. Determined to find the person responsible for destroying the Garrison pub, Tommy and Polly investigate and find a clue that leads them to a group of Irish people known as the Black Lions. Tommy was in a hurry to meet with the organization's leader, and upon arriving, he was greeted by the leader of the Black Lion, Irene O'Donnell, and one of her men. He didn't waste any time and immediately asked her if the rumors were true that the Black Lion had blown up his bar. Irene mockingly refused to answer, which only further angered Tommy. He then brought up the internal issues of the Irish citizens and revealed that he had done his research on her. This made her uneasy, as she knew that Tommy was a force to be reckoned with. She ultimately ceded to his demands and told him to follow her orders. Feeling humiliated by the encounter, Tommy left Irene's room with wounded pride. Later that night, he took matters into his own hands and bribed a police chief to keep the area unguarded until 4 a.m. As the chief of police provided Tommy with additional information, he learned that Inspector Campbell, head of the Irish Secret Intelligence Department, had been appointed to the area and was planning a visit. To Tommy's surprise, he learned that Inspector Campbell was still alive but had sustained a serious injury to his leg. At the Shelby residence, Tommy and his associates discussed plans to expand their business to London. However, his wife Esme was not on board with the idea, as she believed it too dangerous. She explained that wars between gangsters were common in London and that the police and foreigners often got caught up in the fray. Her main concern was that their son would lose his father because of the expansion they were considering. Despite the warnings, Tommy was determined to move forward with the expansion plans to London. He started the expansion the next morning, coinciding with the new market day when all the bosses would be at the horse racing arena. He also had a strategy to take advantage of the war between Jewish and Irish gangs to gather allies, and was specifically targeting Jewish gangs. If successful, the Peaky Blinders would be in control of the areas in London. Tommy also had a secret plan. He knew who was behind the destruction of the Garrison pub, and he went straight to the man and killed him on the spot. In the end, Tommy, John, and Arthur arrived in London. They visited a club owned by the Sabini family, but were rejected by the Sabini leader due to their different origins. This led to a commotion in the bar. The Peaky Blinders had journeyed to London intending to find allies, but things did not go as planned. They were rejected by the Sabini family, who declared war against the Peaky Blinders. On the other hand, Inspector Campbell was seen seeking permission from his superiors to work with Tommy, with the understanding that he would kill him once their deal was complete. Shortly after, the Sabini family began to take action. They kidnapped Ada and ambushed Tommy. Fortunately, before Tommy was overpowered, Inspector Campbell and his men arrived to save him. Meanwhile, Peaky Blinders' men also managed to rescue Ada. After regaining consciousness, Tommy was confronted by Inspector Campbell, who presented him with an ultimatum to collaborate or face punishment for the murder he committed. Faced with difficult decision, Tommy left for London immediately, even though he had not fully recovered, in fear of another attack by the Sabini group. Upon arriving in London, Tommy went to Camden Town to meet with the leader of a Jewish gang, Alfie Solomons. He proposed an alliance, offering him 100 armed troops in connections with the police. Solomons, seeing the potential benefits, quickly agreed to his offer. After the meeting with Alfie Solomons, Tommy immediately reunited with Ada, who was now living in London. He provided her with a luxurious house, far from Sabini territory, for her safety. Back at the Sabini residence, he ordered a paid policeman to arrest Tommy, who had just visited the Solomons' headquarters, according to his informants. However, Sabini also sent his men to target Tommy, as he no longer trusted the police. In the meantime, Sabini attempted to persuade Alfie Solomons to betray Tommy, and eventually, they made a deal. That evening, Michael was invited by one of his friends to a bar. His friend, a black person, invited Michael specifically because of his reputation as a member of the Peaky Blinders, which commanded respect from many people. Unfortunately, amidst their celebration, a man approached Michael's friend and told him to leave the bar because of his race. Michael, who was outraged, defended his friend by beating the man. The bar owner eventually broke up the fight and explained that Michael was part of the Shelby family. Upon hearing this, the man immediately apologized for his ignorance. Even though Michael had forgiven the man, Arthur and John had not. They brought their troops to the bar, killed the owner, and set it on fire. This was the Peaky Blinders' way of sending a message to everyone that they would not hesitate to kill anyone who dared to harm their members. At a church, Inspector Campbell reminds Tommy that his execution is imminent, to which Tommy replies if he dies, then Inspector Campbell will not see the world either. When Tommy returned home, he was seen making a phone call to a hotel in New York, but hung up as soon as he realized it was answered by Grace's husband, despite their long-standing separation. However, it was clear that he knew her current location. Meanwhile, Arthur, Billy, and some of their henchmen were seen meeting with the leaders of a Jewish gang to negotiate their deal. However, in the middle of the meeting, they were ambushed by the Jewish gang, and Billy was shot. It became clear that the Jewish gang had switched sides and joined the Sabini gang. Arthur and Michael were arrested at Polly's residence, and Tommy, who was busy tending to horses at May's house, was unaware of what had happened to his family. He was caught off guard when he learned that the Jewish gang and Inspector Campbell had broken their deal. Enraged, Tommy went straight to Inspector Campbell and confronted him, realizing that he had been plotting to destroy him from the start and had never had any intention of working with him. The Peaky Blinders were now on the brink of collapse. At that moment, Grace called Tommy and asked him to meet her, but he refused, as he had more pressing matters to attend to. Grace, confused and hurt, decided to wait for him at their headquarters. Tommy received information that some of his men had been arrested and that several warehouses and businesses owned by the Shelby family had been seized by the government, while they were trying to find a solution to their problems. Polly was more concerned about her son Michael's condition and didn't care about the fate of the Peaky Blinders, as her main priority was to ensure Michael's safety. The next day, Polly pleaded with Inspector Campbell to release Michael, and thanks to her efforts, he was finally freed. She was determined to keep him away from the Peaky Blinders and their business. Grace, dressed elegantly, told her husband that she was visiting her aunt in London before meeting with Tommy. Once they were reunited, they reminisced about their past and spent a long night together. Tommy deliberately shared this information with Inspector Campbell as a form of revenge, knowing it would hurt him. Tommy ordered John to blow up the door of the Commander-in-Chief Russell's house, signaling the start of a violent attack at the horse races before their big mission. He wrote a letter explaining the situation and detailing the mission to go on a killing spree. He also mentioned Inspector Campbell's name as the person who had orchestrated the killings. He gave the letter to Ada to be sent to the editor of the New York Times with instructions that if he did not return, the letter would be published. Accompanied by a young man named James, Tommy went to meet the Jewish gang leader, Solomons. Upon entering, he was seen hiding something while pretending to fix his shoelaces. His visit to Solomons was to offer cooperation. At first, Solomons was dismissive of Tommy's offer and even asked for a 100% profit. However, Tommy turned the tables by revealing that he had placed a bomb at the venue, and if Solomons refused his offer, the place would be blown up. This made Solomons extremely nervous, and he agreed to his offer. Meanwhile, Inspector Campbell was confronted by the 3 assassins he had hired to kill Tommy. Elsewhere, all the Peaky Blinders members, including Arthur, who had been freed, gathered to hear Tommy's plan for the horse races. At 3 p.m. Tommy devised a strategy to keep the police occupied at the racetrack, allowing Arthur and the others to destroy the Sabini family's business. In short, everyone quickly moved to the location of the horse race before it began. Tommy met with May, who showed clear affection for him, as she was willing to do anything for the success of his horse and wanted to meet with him after the race. Tommy, whose fate was uncertain, reassured May that whatever the outcome of the race, their relationship would remain intact. Just as he was about to carry out his mission, he was stopped by Grace, who revealed that she was pregnant with his child. The news surprised him, and he realized that this was not the right time for this conversation. He asked Grace to tell her husband that the baby was him, but she refused, as she only loved him. Therefore, he asked her to wait until the horse race before deciding on his plan. As the race began, Tommy devised a plan to have Lizzie seduce the Commander Russell, and as they were alone in a secluded area, he killed him. He then told the police that someone else shot the commanders, thus keeping them busy with the situation at the race venue, allowing Arthur and the others to carry out their mission. He then went straight to Sabini, who was unguarded as the police were busy escorting the king and securing the situation. Sabini soon realized that Tommy's men had taken over his efforts, and his business was destroyed. Peaky Blinders, now allied with Alfie Solomons, had regained control. As Tommy was preparing to leave the venue, he was confronted by 3 assassins, hired by Inspector Campbell, pretending to be police. Outside, Grace and May, who loved Tommy, met for the first time and tried to provoke each other with their advantages. Being a high-class woman, May would be useful for Tommy and Peaky Blinders' business in the future, while Grace, although an ordinary woman, was deeply loved by Tommy. As the race ended, the Peaky Blinders were pleased with their profits. However, they were unaware that Tommy was missing. He had been captured by 3 assassins, brought to his grave, and was about to be executed. But one of the assassins turned on the other 2, revealing that he had been given a different task. Thanks to that, Tommy managed to escape death once again. The series ends with the Peaky Blinders celebrating their success, while Tommy, in private, reveals to Michael that he plans to get married soon. The horse that Tommy named Grace's secret is the one that brought him victory and wealth, and it also symbolizes the love of a woman named Grace. The moral lesson from this series is that power and wealth can be gained through cunning and manipulation, but true success is achieved through loyalty and trust. It also highlights the importance of being true to oneself and making choices that align with one's values and beliefs.